Okay, let's get started then on the home tour. See time, yeah, it's almost 1. Okay, so just a um, quick intro on the area. So we are right in the heart of downtown Toronto. Right down there, that intersection that you see, that's King Street. So I am maybe 100 meters, 150 meters from King Street right now. And then just to the east of us is Bathurst. So kind of where you see those apartment buildings is King and Bathurst. So we're right in the downtown core. There goes your TTC going by. Close enough that you can walk there in a couple of minutes, but not so close that you hear the noise or get the rumbling from the streetcar. Okay, and this is the house. So we're on Tecumseh, which is just one street or 2 streets west of Bathurst. This is our lovely homeowner, Florence Lee. And you can see here, this is a townhouse. So we're connected on both sides. We've got neighbors on both sides. And one of the reasons that we went for this is that there are a few properties in such prime locations which kind of met our budget requirements. And this little townhouse nook around Tecumseh definitely did meet that. So let's talk about some of the exterior features of the home. So this is, as you guys are aware, a full legal triplex conversion. So there's a bunch of stuff that we've done to this house to bring it up to legality. And if you have any questions about the process, just ask me along the way, and I'll do my best to answer those. But right away, you see sort of the telltale signs. We've got 3 separate hydrometers here. 3 separate gas meters here, and we've got 3 separate hydrometers here. Something else that we've done and you'll see later when we get down to the basement, to add a bit more light, we expanded this window, and this is right for the basement bedroom, and this lets a ton more light into the area. We'll be kind of retouching and redoing this, space up later on, but right now this is kind of the stage that we're at. We've also replaced the front door, something nice and bright. Florence has got great personal taste, so you can see her design touches throughout the property. One of the things that I want to call out though is, we got rid of a solid front door and replaced it with this full glass door. And this is, something simple you can do to add a lot more light in, especially in these common areas where they don't naturally have windows. So let's walk into the property itself. Any questions about the exterior of the property before we go inside? Nope. Okay. Going in then. So one of the great things about Tecumseh then is the ceiling height. It's a little tough to tell on camera, but we probably have at least 9.5, maybe 10 feet of ceiling height here. And whenever we're looking at doing these conversion projects, we want to make sure that we've got as much height as possible, because it's not easy for us to add height to a property. We can underpin basements, we can raise ceilings, but those propositions are all very expensive. So you see here, this is kind of the common vestibule that we have. And this will lead us right up to our top floor. While we're here, I wanted to just point out the staircase. So this staircase is an original staircase. And one of the things that we try to do when we have these conversion projects is actually keep these original staircases. When we have to change the staircase, we have to bring it up to current standard, which oftentimes means wider and less steep. That is a big engineering and structural change, and it's also very expensive. It'll eat up more space, not only in the ground floor plan here, but it eats up more space above us because we have to meet clearance requirements, right? You can't have the top floor kind of cutting into the headroom of the staircase. So when we can keep an original staircase, we do our best to do that. We'll talk a bit more about the staircase later on as well. This is really one of the big engineering design challenges when you're doing these kind of projects. So let's go quickly through the main unit. We'll go down to the basement. We'll start there, and then we'll work our way up through the property. Okay, so here's the basement. You see we've got a separate entrance down to the basement. And having this dedicated separate entrance plus meeting ceiling height requirements allows us to only have this one entrance. We don't need to have an escapement window. We don't need to have some of these other solutions that people use because we have ceiling height, proper fire separation, and a dedicated entrance here. Access to this goes directly to the laneway at the back. And so the tenant would come in through here and have direct access to their basement unit. So down here, we've added a window. It's covered up right now. And we have an existing window there. And you'll see there's actually quite a bit of light down in this basement, quite a number of windows. So this is the basement unit. Now, in terms of ceiling height, we're probably, if you can see me here, I'm about 5'7", maybe 5'8" on a good day. So the basement isn't super high here, but it meets our requirements. And it also saves us the cost of having to do underpinning, which can get very expensive. Not only is it the cost of to do the underpin, but we also start to get into changes in the footprint, because when you underpin, you lose space around the property as well. Something called benching, if you're familiar with it. You can do underpinning without benching, but it gets very expensive. Here's another window that we've expanded slightly to let a lot more light in. So it's quite a large window. And then we've got another window here. So for a basement, and this is really key to make a basement not feel like a basement, is to make sure that we have all this light coming in. Now, some of the things that are key to the triplex is, if you look up here, we've got fire separated drywall. If you can see that, fire code X, fire rated drywall. This gives us our required fire separation burn time. And then we've kept all the lighting recessed. This also improves our ceiling height, gives more of a sense of space. So again, looking back, this is our common living area. Okay. Then through here, on the opposite side is our kitchen. So we've got the kitchen. We have a peninsula kitchen coming out through here. Sorry, it's a peninsula of the kitchen coming out through here, and then the rest of the kitchen backed up against this wall on this side. And then our HVAC. So all our legal units have completely separated HVAC. So you've got individual forced air for each unit. This is both heating and air conditioning. Okay. One of the things we were just talking about with Florence was, how not only do we have the separate HVAC for each unit, which is very nice comfort, like, because each unit can control its own heating and air conditioning, but it's going to be, the post-COVID world is going to be a very different world. And one of the things I think tenants are going to look at is how separated are they now from other units, and not having to share an HVAC and everybody having their own air system. I think is going to be a very important selling feature in the future. So going through here, this is where our washer dryer is. So each unit has its own washer dryer. And then over here is the bedroom. So let me just back up again so you know where we're coming from. We've got the kitchen area. We're going through the kitchen. And then behind the kitchen, we've got our washer dryer, our bathroom, and our bedroom. So one bedroom unit. Now, if you've been out looking at properties with myself or Ad or Sam, you know that ideally we're trying to get 2 bedrooms because 2 bedrooms allows us for higher rents, more flexibility in tenant profiles. But the reality is we all have budgets that we have to stick to, and locations that we prefer or don't prefer. So one of the, I'd say, compromises that we made is to get in a smaller place where we're looking at 1 bedroom units. We have separate electrical panels for each floor. And this is something where, you know, we really try not to cheap out on. We can have got the small sub panels, which are about half the size. But there's really no point. If we're going through and we're spending all the money to put in separate electrical and we're rewiring the whole house anyway, give it a little bit of future proofing, put in a large enough panel that you can expand in the future. And that is actually something, a potential we're looking at in this property, is to expand the main floor out to make that a 2-bedroom unit at some point in the future. And we've done a little bit of work to make that easier in the future should Florence decide that's what she wants to do. So here in the bedroom, we've got big window. This is really large. If you can see the size of it here. And we are putting an escape window here. You know, this is Florence's preference to make sure that whoever's here has multiple ways of exiting. Is not required for us to do this, but it is something that you know, Florence is more comfortable having in her property. The other thing was we expanded this window quite a bit. It was originally just a very small window, maybe about a quarter this size, and we've largened it to its maximum allowable size without doing additional foundational or structural work. Closet on the other side. And let's go into the bathrooms. So bathrooms, where we can, we try to fit in you know, standard tub. So we're talking about a 5-foot space here across. And then we've got our sink and toilet that will go on the left-hand side over here. Cool. So any questions about the basement unit then before we move on to the rest of the property?
Matthew, what's the square footage of the space?
That's a good question, actually. Flo, I don't know if you know the square footage off the top of your head. Florence, you're on mute. Hey.
Can you hear me now?
No.
I think we might have done a phone.
Oh, do that? It's okay. Do you know off the top of your head?
I'm gonna run up.
Take a look at the floor plan. Oh, cool. Yeah, we've got the actual floor plan with all the measurements on it, so we can show that briefly on here. It's not a huge space. I think maybe, if I'm gonna guess, we'll see how right I am. Maybe 600 square feet for this unit. And that's like, you know, when we're in Toronto, this is what we're considering. Like, these units are direct competitors against things like condos that are in the neighborhood. So we have to make sure that we're bringing it up to a level of finish. And when we go over to Ed's property, where he is now, you'll see the kind of level of finish we bring it up to attract the right kind of tenant. Because basically we're competing against, you know, somebody that would otherwise be looking at a condo, but they're looking for more of a neighborhood feel as opposed to being a box in the sky.
And do you know the actual ceiling height?
I don't know the actual ceiling height, but I do know we conform to the legal requirements. Legal requirements are 75% of the basement area being 6'11". Oh. See, Florence is super prepared. This is Do we have the overall length of the property here? This is sorry, just the building. I think it was on this one. This one we've got roughly 42 feet by, let's say, 12 feet. Yeah.
Oh, for the lot or the building?
Just the whole square footage per floor plate.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure. Was it still 600 something?
600 something?
600 something, yeah.
Yeah. So that good. Good. I know what I'm talking about. Yeah. So roughly 600 something square feet. You can see out here we've got our air conditioners. So 2 are installed currently. And you might be wondering why we don't have the compact style. They're roughly the same price. Like it's not much more to go with a full size. And we have a little bit of backyard room, so we went with that. Any other questions about the basement unit before I start going through the main floor?
Ming, did you need a drain at the base of the outside stairs?
Yes, we do have one.
Okay. Was
Yeah.
that
And yes,
was it
sorry?
already there, or you had to put it in?
It was existing.
Okay.
Yeah, but we just had to make sure it worked.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, and that's a good point. We definitely need to have drainage there. Any sort of exterior staircase is essentially like a big hole in the ground, which water is going to fill up. So you must have drainage there. Yeah, because we're completely code conforming. We're completely doing this under permits and everything. That's actually part of the code requirement as well, to have drainage at the bottom of those stairs.
Hey, Ming, one other question we got from Wendy. She asked, like, is there a backwater valve and sump pump required installed in the basement?
It's not required, and I would say
Join the meeting.
Wait.
Sorry? Yeah, so it's not required by the city. Hey.
I was just going to chime in. There. Sorry, were you asking me or? Oh.
No, I think there's just a question out from the group, like, do we have a backwater, is there a backwater valve installed at Tecumseh, and is it required? So there's no requirement by the city to have a backwater valve. There's no requirement to have a sump pump. Is it nice to have? Definitely. I think if you have the budget, and more importantly, if you're in an area that is a bit of a watershed, you want to get that done. Especially if you're doing something like underpinning. So if you're underpinning a basement where you're now going lower into the ground, therefore closer to the water table, and you're cutting up the basement floor anyway, you might as well do it at that time. And there's also rebate programs from the city for backwater valves and sump pumps, but it's not mandatory for you to do.
I just want to chime in actually real quick. It's Edward also from Volition. Ming is absolutely right there. You definitely don't need one if it was an existing structure, but if you are doing a new dig out, like some of our buildings, then you will need a sub pump. Just FYI.
Yeah. If you're going in and you're underpinning.
Yeah. So there's no requirement, but yeah, it's if you're doing new additions or to the house, you'll need one.
And the basement here at Tecumseh, as I mentioned before, we didn't dig it out. Is a big additional cost, obviously, to to doing that. So, cool. Any other questions about the basement before we move on to the main floor? No. Okay. So main floor here. Let me take you through. So basically, we've got an entrance at the back, and there's also an entrance at the front. It's kind of tough to tell on camera, but there's a ton of light in this property. It's another reason that we went for this. A lot of natural light, especially considering that's a townhouse. So it's a 1-bedroom layout. We'll start in the back with a common area. So excuse all the building materials, there's tons of them. But this is going to be our kitchen. So we've got cabinets and kitchens up to this side here. And then on this side, we've got the rest of the kitchen, stove, things like that will all be out on this side. There was a window here that was closed up to meet fire separation requirements. And instead we opened up a new window here. It's covered up with board right now, but if you can imagine, it makes this space very bright. And I think I mentioned before, one of the things we were looking at is expanding this, potentially expanding the main floor. So there is precedence in this neighborhood for people to have extended these townhouses, which is another thing that we care about because we don't want to be the first to do, major expansion. We'd rather buy in a neighborhood where there's precedence. So we know when we go through committee of adjustments that we have a much better chance of succeeding there. So you're looking at the kitchen right now. And if I back up a little bit here, we get to the kind of living area kitchen combo. So another design decision that we made was to kind of have these together so that way you have the sight lines that you can see from the living area into the kitchen and makes it kind of a nice, more open feeling, especially combined with the high ceiling heights here. Again, you can see here we've got our separate HVAC for this unit. And one of the, I guess, design compromises we had to make was going with a very small washer and dryer so we could fit it all in here to keep the space open. Some of the other things I want to mention is the structural work. We did a bunch of structural work on this property because we moved some walls around. So where you're looking at right here, there used to be a wall, and that was the center. This is the center of the property, so that provided some strength. We wanted to open it up and keep this floor plan wide. So as a result, we need to move around the loads. So we have, we have structural wall here. This became a structural wall. And then up here, we have a bunch of beams. You can see one of the load beams here. But we have a bunch of beams that run through back here to carry that load. It's what's called LVL, if you guys are familiar with construction. It's basically an engineered wood beam. Yeah, Florence, anything else you'd add to this this part of the house? Oh yeah. Probably want to dive into the extension portion a little bit more. So another reason why this is laid out the way it is it's currently 1 bedroom, and if we wanted to extend this, it's easier for us to do it as a 2-bedroom. So basically, this living area would be closed off, and this would become a 2nd bedroom. And then this would become the kitchen, and then at the back would be our living area. So then this whole back space would become a common area. And then we have. Yeah. So if part of the big reason, as I mentioned before, was precedence. We don't want to be the first to do new stuff. So if we walk out to the basement and take a look at our neighbors, you can see what people around us have done. So they've got a 3rd floor, which is really nice. And that also means, in the future, if we decide we want to add that 3rd floor, we're not going to get objection, or we should not get objection from COA because it's been done before. And then on this side, you've got a big bump out. So as I mentioned before, not without precedence. This is really important when we're looking at doing projects. And you'll see up there, we've got this was just installed, gorgeous new Juliet balcony. Okay, so let's get back into the project. So layout here, we've got our bathroom. Again, enough room for a standard tub. This stuff here, it's a little dark in here, but I want to kind of point it out. This is not standard insulation. This green stuff that you'll see all throughout the property, this is called Raxil Safe and Sound. We put in extra safe and sound within the property to, again, attenuate the noise. So safe and sound is exactly what it is. It's safe in that it provides fire retardant, but obviously we don't need fire retardant material between the bathroom and the living area, unless you're doing weird things in the bathroom. But sound, the sound part, it is a sound deadening material. So we wrap key areas like plumbing with the safe and sound, and it just reduces the noise because, if somebody flushes the toilet, you're not going to hear the water running through the walls as much. It definitely dampens that sound. Likewise, when you turn on the shower or flush the toilet, you don't hear it as much. Okay, that's the bathroom, and this is the bedroom here. It's a nice big bedroom, great ceiling heights, this huge window. Hard to show the proportions here, but hopefully you get an idea of the kind of the size of the window with me standing in front of it. Now, one of the nice custom touches that we have in this property is, Florence wants to maximize the storage space. You know, when you are living in, you know, 600, 700 square feet, storage is at a premium. So one of her ideas was to take the height of the property and use that to her advantage. And she's built some extra storage space above the closets. And again, you see our separate electrical panel here. You see the same thick fireproof drywalls used to provide our fire separation. And I think I saw a little flash on the screen about resilient channels. All the drywall is mounted on resilient channels. What resilient channels do, so it's like when we're trying to attenuate sound between units, it's a combination of things. And there's a lot that's actually done in this unit to prevent sound transfer. So one of them is the safe and sound, which we showed. That's also between units. So in the floors, we've installed safe and sound as well. The other thing that we've done is we've mounted all the drywall on resilient channels. So sound transfers two ways, right? Sound transfers through the air, right? So if we block off the flow of air, that's one way we can block off sound. And then the other is vibration. So if you imagine, if I hit this wall, it vibrates this stud, which vibrates this stud, which vibrates this piece of drywall, and then the sound emanates off that. So there's an opportunity for me to reduce vibration. What resilient channel does is it holds the drywall away from the stud. So if I hit the drywall or I'm stamping on the ground, it vibrates, the vibration transmitted through the structure is less, right? So it doesn't eliminate it. If you know about kind of sound engineering and construction, you can never eliminate noise, but it does help attenuate the kind of amount of noise coming through. Let's see, any other questions then about the main floor? Let me just pull up the chat real quickly. Okay, so I think I answered some of the questions around sound deadening, backwater valve. In terms of financials, I think I saw a question earlier on about financials as well. We actually ran through financials at a previous meetup. That should be all posted online, and we go through a bunch of types of properties and the financials behind them and the kind of expected cash flow. So let's go up onto the top unit. Now this is the owner's suite, so it's definitely the nicest out of all the units here. We have direct access from the front. We go all the way up. So you can see there's already tons of light here. Some of the key changes or key additions that we made is this skylight directly above the main hallway here. And in buildings that we have, you know, stacked against other semis or, you know, closed detached homes, this is a very nice addition to have to bring kind of light into the areas that wouldn't otherwise have windows. Now, I mentioned that we were going to talk about the stairs a bit more. And what we're looking at here is a $200 solution to a $15,000 problem. Florence is laughing a lot right now. So basically, when we had taken this house, we come up with the layouts. But one of the challenges that we had was these are the existing stairs, and it goes right into this bathroom here. Now, for us to go from stairs into a bathroom, you can see there's a step up. And the original floor here was actually about 6 inches lower. Now, you don't want to have to step up and open a door, right? That is very awkward and probably not to code. We never got to the point where we had to bring it to the city to talk about. But one of the solutions that we came up with, like we were talking about all sorts of like solutions. So changing floor plans, which would be quite difficult. We were talking about, you know, replacing these stairs with a new set of stairs, which, and I mentioned before, when we get into changing stairs, it's very challenging, very expensive, and it changes all our layouts. We've got engineering work to do around the stair opening. But one of the things that, you know, between myself and contractors we came up with was actually to lift this whole area. We added this little triangle step, This was originally a full square, this a little landing here. Add this triangle step, and then just lift this whole area up so it's all even. And that's, yeah, not to pat myself on the back, but it was a great solution to what would have otherwise been a very expensive problem. Florence said she'll pat me on the back. Thanks, Florence. So let's go here. So you come up the stairs, right? Now railings haven't come in yet, but they're coming in closer to the end of the project. You turn to your right here, here's the bedroom. So we've got a linen closet here. And then we've got a fairly sizable bedroom. Now this used to be just a window. We've opened it up to make a Juliet balcony. And we may be putting a deck here as well in the future. We'll see what pricing comes back on that. Here's again a shot of the bedroom. And we've got closet, and again with additional storage space at the top. Ceiling heights here are quite good. Don't know exactly what they are, but they're definitely upwards of 8+ feet. And the common area here, you're probably looking at like, I don't know, 8.5, maybe 9. It's nice. It's very nice and open. We've got our bathroom here. You see we've got a tub again. We've got all our services on the side. So vanities, washrooms will be on this side. Lots of light into this bathroom. And then we've got this funky looking, super expensive green stuff. So as I said, you know, Florence, in particular, I think Florence wants to manage noise in her property. She's going to be living here, and it is a townhouse, so you're directly connected to your neighbors. So, you know, something that we really worked on with her is what can we do to attenuate the sound. This material here, it's called Sonopan, and it is a dedicated soundproofing material. So we've got our required, soundproofing behind here, our required fire separation. Then we've got Sonopan on top of this, which deadens sound further. Plus we've got resilient channel. So, like I said before, you can't completely eliminate noise, but this really helps attenuate the noise that could potentially come through. And if you were in this unit now, it is dead quiet. Like we've got the bustling city outside, but in here, it's silent. Cool. Let's go over to the main area. So we've got this very large, spacious main area here. So over onto the side here will be our kitchen. And then we've got kind of the peninsula of the kitchen through here. So yeah, there you can see the plumbing. This is kind of where the peninsula of the kitchen will come out. You can see where the hood range would go. So this is where the stove area is. So, and then if I turn around, again, our beautiful separate HVAC, laundry services go in there as well. We've got attic access, and we want, especially here, access to this attic because it's very high actually. It would make some excellent storage. Yeah, I mean, when we came here and we opened up the ceilings, Florence was like, wow, this is beautiful. Can we do a cathedral ceiling? And, unfortunately, it's quite expensive to do a cathedral ceiling, so we opted not to do it. But if you were to see this beautiful ceiling here now, there's a ton of LVL as well. So let me finish talking about this space, and then we'll kind of talk about what was unexpected about this project. I'm not say unexpected, but less expected. We knew so there were some problems, and kind of the process that we went through to solve those problems. Because every construction project has them. No construction project runs smoothly. It's about like, what are the problems and how do you deal with those problems? So, anyway, this is the common space here. So we've got our kitchen. This will be our eat-in kind of dining area and couch/TV. All proper space planning done on CAD. That's why we don't have weird layouts, because we actually do this right We do it ahead of time. We plan it all out in CAD, so that way when we have real drawings to give our contractors, so it's not some sort of Mickey Mouse job. And then we've got another skylight here. This gives you hopefully an idea of the height that is above the ceiling and why Florence really wanted those cathedral ceilings. Okay. Now it's about 25,000 we were looking at to open up the whole ceiling. And it is a bunch of money because so much stuff needs to be moved around for us to really have an open space. So let's talk about this wall. So, you know, if you've been on a showing with me or Ed,
Join the meeting.
if you've been on a showing with me or Ed, you know that it's very much like half home showing, half home inspection, because we care so much about, especially in a competitive Toronto market, you know, the property itself, and we don't often have time to have condition for inspection. So we need to look for the potential major structure ourselves, and you know, kind of go in with eyes open when we're doing one of these projects. Now, I don't know if you can see here, but there is a clear bend in the wall. And when we were acquiring this property, we knew there was a bend in this wall. What we didn't know it is how much of a problem is this, and how were we going to deal with it? But we knew it existed. So the worst case scenario for this wall is that it needs to come down, right? Worst case is that this wall has leaned too much and engineers say the whole wall has to come down, we need to rebuild it. That's super expensive, right? Not only do we have to take off a piece of structure, and when we have to remove structure, we have to brace everything. Because this is a townhouse, we have to worry about our neighbors too. We can't just simply start pulling down structure. Their structure relies on our structure. It's all tied together. What we were able to do, though, is fix it in place. So what that meant was this wall here, we took these 2x6 beams and we laminated all the walls. So basically the wall is double the strength that it was before. So now we've got a wall that's double the strength, but it's leaning. It's weighing over, it's tilting over. So that means more weight and actually more stress causing it to lean over. So then we need to take all that weight and we need to bring that strength and tie it back through the house. So above us here in the ceiling is a bunch of LVL, so structural beams, which bring the load back through the house and down. So there's a bunch of additional structural LVL work. And you might be able to see a bit of it above here. Cool. That was probably the biggest surprise here. And, you know, probably I would say in terms of construction projects, probably one of the bigger things to deal with. It's not, you know, it's not common that you buy, you know, a home with a lien, but we were able to get, you know, good price. We got this for under $1 million. Yeah, 940. Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, 940 for a property that is literally steps from, you know, Bathurst and King is pretty amazing. So yeah, that's kind of the property in a nutshell. Any questions, I guess, specific to this build? If there aren't any, we can flip over to Ed. But I just want to see if there's any questions about Tecumseh or anything that Florence you wanted to add.
What are your project costs?
Project costs. So in terms of project costs, I would say that, you know, this property probably costs in total about $450 for us to do. These kind of legal renovations are not cheap. You could do it cheaper because, you know, like I said, you know, Florence, she wants sound deadening. We're doing things like having to repair structure. These are major additional costs to the project. Now, so you don't necessarily have to spend that much, but what we find is oftentimes when people are going through these projects, they'll want to do some of these upgrades, right? Especially for Florence, she'll be living here, right? So this is not just, you know, a rental property for her. This is also a home. So, you know, she wants to have, you know, certain layouts, certain designs as well. So, yeah, I don't think people can hear you.
I don't know.
Here,
I can
you
talk
can
into your headset,
speak into this.
Oh, can I? Okay. Well, this is now weird because Bing is pointing a thing right at me, and my face is in here too. But one thing I would add is that this is a quasi-investment property. I tend to do this a lot where I say when I move into one of the units, and I was very particular and had a lot of debate with Matt in the beginning about wanting a 2-block radius within King and Bathurst. So what I would say is for the next project, and this is a much more classic investment example. Mine is a blend of, okay, well, I'm very particular about area, and these are the constraints of the budget. So, yeah.
Hey, Ming.
Hey.
And one of the question we got is the any idea of the projected rent for each of the unit?
Projected rents. Yeah. I just wanted to make sure Florence was okay sharing the numbers on our property. You know, obviously we like to respect our clients' privacy. This is a real house. These are somebody's real financials that we're talking about. But we're projecting anywhere between 6,500 and 7,000 in rents on this property.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yep.
Sorry? Yeah. So there's a bunch of additional caveats here. Is like, do we do furnished here? That's something we could potentially look at. Just given the neighborhood, this neighborhood does support furnished rentals. Not every neighborhood would do that, but because we're so much in the core of the city, we could do furnished rental here for an additional rental lift.
Sorry, did you say you projecting 6,500 to 7,000 total rents?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions about this property?
Ming, just question, how long did it take for the whole renovation?
We're not done.
Yeah.
as you can tell, we're not quite done yet. In terms of how much time would I budget to do these builds, I would give yourself 1 year. And it's 1 year from the time of acquisition, right? So, you know, this not HGTV. It takes quite a bit of time to do these renovations, especially when we're doing a legalized unit, because we must go through committee of adjustments for us to get that legalized status. If we're not doing this legally, we're not having proper fire separation, we're not having the air separation. And I think I saw a question quickly that went by about air separation. Air separation requirements have changed in the last 6 months, which there is air recirculation requirements now. And to meet air circulation requirements, there are a number of options, but the easiest and actually what ends up being pretty much the same price is to have 3 forced air units. We looked at using, you know, ductless. We looked at using a combination of maybe radiant heating with boilers and stuff like that. But frankly, it's also kind of ugly. And you know, when we're talking about high-end luxury rentals, people don't want boilers sitting in them, nor do they want ductless units sitting at the top. It's not as a clean look, and not what people expect when you're, you know, up against, you know, a condo, for example. So that's another reason why we go with forced air. And did I answer the original question?
Ming, I have a question.
Yes, you did. Thanks.
Okay.
Ming, this is Daniel Wong.
Hey,
did
Daniel.
you think about, hey, how are you? How about hydronic heating? It's still forced air, but using hydronic way to heat the air. Have you thought about that?
Yeah, so I'm not an HVAC expert. I'll tell you right now. In terms of options, basically we present our architect and our engineer, our HVAC engineer, with our objectives and our budget, and then they build to that. So there are definitely other options that were put on the table, but in terms of pricing, this is what came out to be the most cost effective.
All right, thanks a lot.
Yeah, no problem. Any other questions about the property? Okay, well, if there's nothing about this property, Ed, we can fire it over to you.
Ming, sorry, there was
All right.
one more question. Was that 6,500 to 7,000 estimate for all 3, or was it for 2?
That's correct. It's for all 3.
Okay.
Hey, Ming.
Yep.
Just wondering, what's your estimated appraisal value at the end of this project?
Sam, what do you think our ARV would be given this area, given what we've seen happen probably in the last year or so in terms of housing prices, especially in this pocket?
Yeah. Well, given the amount of rent, the projected rent that we can get around close to $7,000, I would say the appraised value should come back with like around 1.5 mil. But the resale value could be even higher because oftentimes the appraisal a little bit more conservative because they are high by the banks, so they would typically come have between, I would say, 5% or 5%, 5 to 10 lower than the actual market value.
Yeah, and we know in terms of market value that the project that Sam did on Brock, we've probably appraised it to be about 1.8, but it sold for 2. That was another triplex conversion that we've done. So we know actual market values tend to be higher, but if you are planning on doing this as a BRRRR and you need to work your numbers on the refi, obviously you can't do it as high as you would get on market value.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Any other questions before we flip it over to Ed? I'll still be on the line, and as well as the rest of the Volition team. So, feel free to ask questions, and we'll flip it over to you. Then, Ed, you can show us your property.
Hi. Do you guys hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So this one right here, I'll give you a quick introduction. I don't have a cameraman like Ming does, so it's gonna be mainly selfies and me pointing at empty spaces. But it is a semi-detached house. It's 2.5 stories. We're actually working on another one right beside over there at 12 also, and that one's in the same stage as the one that Ming has going on too. But we'll show one that is a little bit more complete right now. And I'll just give a quick tour of the outside of the house before we go inside. So as you can see, it has a small front line, no parking, 2.5 stories. All the windows has been changed. Basically, the house is ready to move in, but due to COVID, things are moving quite slow at this time, including inspections. To the person with the question about 3 separate meters or not, we are going for 3 separate meters. As you can see, all the rough-ins are in place. We have 2 of them installed because they have passed the ESA inspections. We have the 3rd one coming in as soon as the ESA inspection gets passed too. This house, contrary to the other one, has both mini split system and a furnace system. I think depending on which unit it's for, if there isn't a lot of overhead space, a mini split system does help a lot in making the space feel bigger and have higher ceilings. And this is what we did with the basement. A heat, like a hydronics heat system in the, sorry, one second.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. Tenants from the other house. So this is the mini split system. Goes to the separate AC units. So for this house, we have created a separate entrance into the back, and we also created another separate entrance for the basement. So this is freshly dug out. As you can see, it's fresh concrete, new cinder bricks, or concrete bricks. And if you see right here, there is a drain also. So to the point where someone was asking if a sub pump is necessary for a house, when you are doing a new dig out, it is necessary. This is a new bylaw. Before, it wasn't. If it's existing walkout, you don't need to improve on it, but it's highly advised to have a sub pump because, like Ming said, water does collect there. If you can see here, there's no ducts. It makes the basement look quite large, and it makes the space look actually very open. Mini splits, and then we also have supplemental radiant heat systems, electrical baseboards, because that's also part of the building. We do for 35, and the city would like every residence to have a secondary heat system. You're just using a heat pump system. The part about these heat pump systems are that they provide AC also. Obviously, it might not be necessary for the basements, but we'll give it to the tenants if they want to have some AC. They can definitely turn it on. All hydro is paid by the tenants, so if they want to spend a little bit more energy, it's on them. The ceiling height is around 7 feet, so it's a very good ceiling height, maybe a little bit more actually. Nice little washroom. Another bedroom. Bedroom is over 100 square feet, so they can fit a queen bed. And Caesar stone, kitchen, appliances. This right here is a fire rated door. We do have one industrial boiler for the whole house. And because this services the whole property, this is its own common area. So this area right here is fire rated. This is also a fire rated door. It's metal. And each unit will have its own washer and dryer. Give me a second. Forgot. Each unit also has its own panels. We hide it behind these doors. These are 60 amp panels. There's one for upstairs, main floor, and basement. So as you can see, even without the lights, it's quite bright inside, but with the pot lights on, it feels very, very spacious. All right, so let's move on to the main floor and the second and third floor. Let me know if I need to stabilize my arm a little bit more. Probably should have brought a straddle. So right here, we're going to be removing these fences, the green ones, but as of now, landscaping and decorating the property is it's going to be done at the end. Right here, we also have completed, we have complete railings on the deck. However, we are keeping it protected, just like these floors, because we are still moving in and out appliances and larger items. So this is going to be a private entrance to the second and third floor. However, we do have an entrance right here to the main floor currently, which will be sealed off on a later date because I'm not sure if Ming brought this up, but we do convert these homes into a duplex first and then to a triplex to avoid development charges. There's one bathroom. Yeah.
It's Sam. I think you may want to redo a video when you move around, maybe move a little bit slower. I think there's a lag.
Oh, okay.
Video. Yeah.
Oh, is there? Okay. Okay. I'll try to walk a little bit slower.
Yeah.
So right here is going to be a one bedroom for the main floor, which connects to the kitchen and living area and the second bedroom for the main floor. This is the washroom. So like I said, that entrance over there is going to be closed off permanently once we do go for the triplex permits. However, as of now, because we are in line to get inspected due to COVID, we are still as a duplex. So here's the second bedroom right here. Lots of natural light. Every room has its own closet. Sorry, give me a second. So we also have great ceiling height over here too. And this is where the next, or the main floor kitchen is going to be, with the kitchen and living right along here. Again, right behind that door, we have another panel. Take a look here. We have a washer and dryer, and we also have a furnace. This system right here is a furnace with a separate AC unit outside. We do have a little bit higher ceilings on this floor, which allows us to put ducts without making the unit look too, without taking away from this unit's open concept. Or making the unit feel too cramped for that matter. So again, each of these rooms are over 100 square feet, allowing for a queen bed, maybe even a small study. And here is the closet for this floor, or for this bedroom, sorry. So this is the main entrance for the owner-occupied suite, or the second and third suite. This suite is a lot bigger. It's a 3-bedroom, 2-washroom unit. And the door will be right here. You have the washer and dryer. And a very bright open concept living and kitchen space right here too. With this own small island, a nice little sunroom, or breakfast room. And again, each of these units on the second, third floor and the main floor have its own furnace and cooling system, and they're all controlled separately with a smart thermostat. The main floor will have a washroom at the end. And this floor has a little bit of a different design from the basement and the main floor too, because it is technically the owner's suite. You can tell from the shower heads are pretty cool. And here is, I would say maybe the master bedroom. Lots of natural light and a very large walk-in closet. So going upstairs, we have 2 more bedrooms and another washroom. So again, the bedrooms are all very well sized. They're queen size bed here. Closet right there. And it has a walk-in washroom, which is shared between the 2 upper bedrooms. This was thought out so that we would not have any, three tenants. Usually 2 washrooms is a minimum for comfort at least. So this way they would actually have their own shower without having to run downstairs. Closet's right there. And we have a nice little Juliet balcony, which we will possibly also be changing it into a patio afterwards. So this right here has actually been pushed out and was created new. This is a small dormer which we created, and you can see from this beam right here that the LVL is supporting the structure. We already reinforced the roof, so it is ready for a balcony, but as of now, we're working on the other parts of the house. You can see there's one right there. I believe there's another balcony on the other side too. So does anyone have any questions in regards to this property? I don't think there's too much else to show.
What's the neighborhood? What's the,
Little Portugal. I think the owner suite's actually very, very nice. It's I would say it's the same size as most single family homes downtown. It's roughly 1,300 square feet without the basement.
what was the purchase price?
1.15.
And what's the expected ARV?
Well, the expected ARV before COVID was around 2 million. I'm not sure if the ARV or the appraised value was 1.85, and this was done last month. Well, actually not, yeah, it was done last month, maybe 2 weeks ago. And this was during COVID time. So they're using the 90-day resale value to assess this property. And we got 1.85.
Thank you.
Oh, I forgot to mention, interconnected fire alarms throughout the house. This is necessary. You need it in each bedroom, each room actually, kitchens too. And let me see if there's anything else to note. Yeah, any other questions?
Total project costs? Can you share that?
Be 450 to 500 for Nate's answering it all.
I have a question, Ed, Daniel?
Yeah.
Daniel Wong?
Yeah, and that's also tax included, by the way.
A committee of adjustment. The push out for the dormer, for that Juliet balcony, was that a committee of adjustment item?
No, the dormer is, you're allowed to do it on a roof without going to COA. As long as the roof that you're pushing it out on is not facing another structure and you're only pushing up 40% of the roof.
Thanks a lot. Excellent.
No problem. Yeah. Are you just testing us right now, Daniel?
What are the typical
Yes,
timelines?
absolutely.
What are the typical timelines to get approval for the community investments from start to finish?
It would take at least 4 to 6 months. So let me actually bring you guys downstairs, and I'll give you guys a quick peek. Sorry, I'm just trying to find out where the light switch is at.
Holy. Sorry guys for all my swearing. There's a giant gust of wind and it blew my coffee all over my car.
Yeah, so it takes roughly 4 to 6 weeks. It's 4 to 6 months to get a COA date. And once you get the hearing, it's actually pretty quick to get the minor variance zoning bylaw. And if you can see, we have it here as of November 6th. We applied for COA date, I believe, in June of last year.
The one thing I'd add on to the question around the COA is the COA is shut down right now because of COVID. The people who had dates with the COA basically had their dates all canceled and you have to rebook now. So I think if you're going through COA right now, those timelines are going to be extended. By how much, I'm not sure. Because basically everybody for the last 2 months didn't get to see COA. So there's going to be this big backlog.
Right. And just, I guess, a quick tour of the other house. As you can see, there's a big garbage bin. I won't go in. I mean, we could take a quick peek inside, but also 3 separate meters right here too. And this was purchased a little bit later for 1.35. So prices jumped up in 2019, but numbers still make quite a lot of sense. This one, because it has a parking spot, it should be worth roughly the same or maybe a little bit more than the other projects. You guys have any other questions? I'll give you guys a quick peek inside of this one too.
Which street did you say that was?
Sorry?
What was the street?
We'll disclose the street in the next report.
Yeah, you mentioned it. Yeah, it's on Rushholme.
Rushholme Park.
Yeah. College and Dufferin area.
Mm. Yeah, so you can see this house is much more like Ming's. But yeah, any other questions while we just do a quick walkthrough? I'm not going to answer any questions specifically about this one. About 8 Rush. As you can see, some water.
And I believe the owner is also making 2-bedroom, 1 full bath in the basement. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
2 bedrooms and 1 bath.
Yep.
Seeing if you can maybe fit another bathroom, but from what I remember, but I don't recall the final plans, to be honest. It's been a little while since I looked at it.
Yeah. And I believe we do have the 3 separate HVAC and cooling system in this property as well too, right?
Absolutely. Each one will have its own separate HVAC systems.
Right.
If you want to have a good rental property, you want to be able to give each of your tenants their own heating and cooling. The basement is usually a little bit cooler. Upstairs is usually a bit warmer. And everyone has their own preferences in temperature.
And I guess what we're looking at right now is one of the bedroom on the main floor, correct?
Right, exactly. So 2 bedrooms here, 1 washroom, kind of back to Cecily's question. This circuit board is also in one of the bedrooms. It's not really a big deal where you place it. It's about getting access from both inside and outside. And it has to be kind of planned out ahead of time just to make sure that it's incorporated as part of the design. Again, a very open concept, living, dining right here with those small sunroom over there too, or a study. Second HVAC system. Is there any other questions about 8 Rush or this one?
I just had a question about the target rents on the second property.
Target rent of the second property is between 85 to 8,800, 84 to 88. So the reason we know this was obviously because of market rent comparables, but it's not many properties that are super well renovated. In Toronto, a lot of them are done without permits and done basically with the contractor coming in and throwing on some drywall and updating some ceramic tiles in the washrooms. What we have noticed is that there's a house that was done right beside the Rush Home property, and it's renting out for $3,600 a month to 3 girls, 3 bedrooms, 1 washroom. The renovations are subpar. They are much worse than what we are doing in both these properties. So knowing that, we're pretty confident we could rent out a 3 bedroom for around at least 36, potentially 38, or maybe even more. But as of now, because of COVID, there has been a small slowdown in the rental market. But that's also good because both of these projects are not fully ready as of yet. So hopefully when they are, the economy reopens and we'll see Toronto booming once more.
Ed, what do you think our rents would be there if we were, in a regular rental market, so not kind of handicapped by COVID?
Yeah, like I said, 36 to 3,800 for a 3 bedroom. For a 2 bedroom main floor, we have seen properties rent from 26 to 2,800, and the basements 22 to 2,400. And this does not include utilities.
Just to add on, some Matt finally joined. Just to add on to what Ed was saying, that next door neighbor, it was a reno job that was done without permits. There was no structural. It was literally just a cosmetic reno, seeing really, really terrible layout. There was no open concept. All they did was slap some paint, put a really basic, I think it was IKEA kitchen in there. And they basically rented it out, and they turned around and rent that thing. They rented it out for, that was like 35, right? Right, Ed? That was a year ago.
It was 36, right?
36?
It was 36. Yeah, and then the furnace system in the basement. The reason we decided to go with a mini split system in this basement, for example, is because with the bulkheads, which drops the ceiling height by around a foot, you lose a lot of ceiling height, and it makes the unit feels a little more cramped. And that's kind of is what's happening with, I'm not going to show the exact number of the house, but this one right here, they have a bulkhead running in right in the middle of the basement, and they're still able to get over $2,000 in rent for their basement 2-bedroom.
Yeah, what they got for not doing very much was pretty insane. So we're targeting that plus more.
Yeah. No, I think it's market. Honestly, I think it's market because if you were to go to more expensive neighborhoods, right? For example, if you were to go to DuPont and Bathurst and DuPont and Spadina, we're seeing 1-bedrooms rent out for 24, 25, 2,600. 1-bedrooms, and our 2-bedrooms here are renting out for 26, 2,800. I think that's a steal, if anything. Obviously, because of COVID, there has been a little bit more vacancies. So, and prices have dropped a little bit, but this is only temporary, in my opinion. As soon as everyone does get employed again, which it will happen as soon as the small businesses reopen, we're going to see prices go back up at a pretty fast rate.
What did you say you were seeing at DuPont and Bathurst and Spadina?
We have seen 1-bedrooms rent out for like $2,600, $2,400. Hasn't been an issue along that area. The annex. Prices of houses are a little bit more expensive there. So we're looking at similar ROI year to year. Are there any other questions? Let me actually turn on the chat.
Were there any questions in the chat that haven't been addressed yet? Sorry, I'm just
yeah. So I guess to Cecily's point, we did a lot of planning beforehand and got permit approval pretty soon after the property was finished. Property was closed on. We ran into some small issues here and there, but that's like the rough timeline of acquiring the property.
Well, I want to add one more thing is, without the COVID-19, typically we can even rent it out before the completion of the renovation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The house is ready. The house is ready.
Yep. Sometimes we can even rent it out without the kitchen, like physical kitchen being in place, right? And we got people knocking the door to, basically want to get the keys from us. So again, it's all just COVID-19 that really hit in the market. But we strongly believe once it's done, we can move the unit very quick, and especially we can get the rent.
Absolutely. Sure. And also, I think Shirley was asking how much a new dig out costs. A new dig out, just the dig out itself will cost between 15 to 16K. And you'll need to actually have a new drain and sub pump system there too. So it does get quite expensive when doing things all properly and with permits. Obviously, if you already have a grandfather walk down, you might not need to upgrade your sub pump, or you might not need a sub pump at all, but it's always advised to have one, or at least update the drainage of all these new homes. All the drains are ceramic initially, so you want to update to the new building code. They are a little bit more resilient to cracks, breakages, and clogs. And obviously add a sub pump. It's worth the few $1,000s that you spend on it.
Targeting, did you say 50 to 60,000 for a dig out?
15 to 16,000. 15 to 16,000 just for the dig out. And if you need to break the floor inside to add a sub pump and drains, it's more expensive.
You mean for the walk down, for the basement?
For the walk down, exactly. The new concrete walk down in the basement. That thing is not cheap. it's not cheap. A lot of digging, a lot of cement.
Hey, Ed, I have a question. It's Daniel again. Sump pump. Where did you put it? And what's the noise level?
It's put in the living room, but it shouldn't be too loud. We had it on before. You don't really hear it.
All right, great, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Obviously, if you can put it into its own separate room, that'd be great, but it's not always possible, right? Especially in these small spaces.
That's just going to add on to what about the dig down. There's a saying in construction that there's nothing more expensive than moving dirt. And anytime you're talking about, even something as simple as like a basement walkout, it's very expensive. Underpinning is even worse. So.
I agree with Ming. For sure. I'm doing that. Big dollars.
Yeah. There's not like when we tour places, with myself and Ed, we're looking at potential properties, and Ed, let me know if you kind of agree here, but the things that kill most properties for us is the basement. Like either we don't have good access to it, or the ceiling heights are too low, or we see moisture penetration. But like I would say 80% of the properties I look at, what ends up being a deal breaker is the basement and having to fix problems in the basement. Now, obviously, we get it for the right price. We could build that as part of our business case and our model, but it's usually basements that are the deal breakers.
So I agree with you, Ming, because you look at a basement, also the rent is capped. So in terms of what you have to put in to make that basement livable, it is by far the worst per square foot unit you could possibly create. So absolutely agree.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be the one you have to put the most money to fix, and it'll be the one you get the least money back.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, there's nothing you can do with the basement. No matter how well you make it, you're capped. So yeah, exactly. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, so the properties that already have good ceiling heights, in the 7-foot range, there's tons and tons of value there.
Yeah.
And the reason is because that might mean that you don't have to underpin. Because if we're trying to turn these into little triplexes, I think 6'11" is the height that we're finished, is the height we're looking for. So if we can reach that without having to underpin, it will mean your rent will be a bit lower than if you underpinned and got 8-foot ceilings, yes. But it also means you're not going to spend $60,000 on underpinning. So for example, we're not touring this property right now, but the one where we've toured before on Brock, Sam's property, he didn't underpin that one because he had really good ceiling height, and he still got what, 2,400 for that basement.
24.
Yeah.
2450. 2450.
Yeah, that's an insane amount of rent for a basement unit that's not underpinned. But that's because when he was looking for the property, he found the right one and didn't have to underpin.
But to Ming's point too, it's like it depends on what we can get the property at, right? As of now, there's some discount properties where if it does take a year to complete, if we're expecting property values to go back up or resume normal growth and rents to resume normal growth, that year of completion time will allow you to get the rents that we have seen previously. On top of that, you might, because we're able to buy at a discount, you might be willing to put the 40 to 60K in underpinning a basement. Yeah. Underpinning a basement will create a lot of value, especially if you have like low ceiling heights, like below 6 feet, or getting into 8 feet ceilings. It's going to feel like a main floor unit. You're going to be able to get some of the rents to the main floor unit if done properly and done well.
And there's properties where spending that money on a basement definitely makes sense. To your point, Ed, like let's say you're looking at a basement unit, but it's above grade. Like a lot of that basement is above grade. It's got big windows, but it's short. Well, if you underpin that basement, then it is going to be very similar to a main unit because it feels a lot more like a main unit. If you're dealing with a basement that's well below grade in an area that maybe basements have much more of a cap, then it doesn't make sense to do that underpinning. I don't think there's no clear answer, and that's kind of where our expertise come in. you know, when you're
Right.
looking at a place with myself or Ed, that's where we lay our knowledge on, is to say, hey, this could be worth it for you guys, or this, you know what, stay away from this one.
Yeah. And to someone else's point about having mini split system, HRVs, and also other type of heating and cooling devices in the basement, I think the basement preferred heating system is a radiant heat, in my opinion, just because it does give you the head clearance. Other floors might have ceiling heights of 9 feet, 8 feet, or 10 feet, but because the basement is usually limited with the ceiling height, if you have, unless you underpin, it's often a good idea just to use radiant heat system because you don't really need cooling anyways.
Ed,
yeah,
would
sorry.
you or Matt
Yes.
be able to explain the process of avoiding the development charges and just
Yes,
going from a single family to a duplex to a triplex? I'm pretty sure I'm
I was
butchering the
reading
explanation in the comments.
It's okay. So I think Ida asked a question about legal duplex and going to COA and then triplex. That is not, you don't have to do it in steps like that. You can apply for a COA date for rezoning as soon as you acquire the property and as soon as you submit permits to the city. The reason for that is because it's two separate matters, getting a permit and rezoning. Obviously, the whole process of avoiding development charges is so that, so the whole, the process of what we call phase construction is to avoid development charges of between 30 to 60K, depending on number of bedrooms and the size of each unit. We always want to convert to a duplex first and then add a secondary unit. So how the bylaws are written currently, which is subject to change, is that you can add a secondary suite that is smaller than the rest of the units in the house without having to pay development charges. So it's essentially a loophole. So what you do is you create a duplex, you close the duplex permits, and then you apply for a triplex permit, and then you close the triplex permits, and then you'll have a legal triplex without having to pay the DC charges. This is something that not a lot of architects will know either, and not a lot of architects may know how to plan for, or even designers or real estate agents. So it is a little trick that we have learned to save quite a lot of money. And then again, to Ida's point, you don't need to wait until you have a duplex closed before you go to COA. If you did that, the construction time would be like 1.5 years plus. So you do it all simultaneously.
I want to support what Ed is saying. The kind of knowledge that these guys have at Volition is invaluable. Everything you're saying is but no, it's true. Because you could learn it the other way, or you could learn from these guys, and it is a bit of a trick, and it's invaluable. So what he's saying is true. Not all architects, actually most architects do not know. 99% of them do not know. So,
99% that we've talked to doesn't know.
Not just what he's saying. And the other thing, Ed, you're asking about that trick. It's you're talking about the 45% rule about secondary suites, where you still have to go to committee of adjustment. Do you not?
Well, why do you have to go? No, you have to go to committee of adjustments for a few things. Right. The reason you have to go to COA is if your property does not have as of right zoning or as of right building code, zoning code to build a triplex. For example, I'll give you an example right here. This one,
okay,
this property right there only has 1 parking.
Right.
That property right there has 0 parking.
Right.
In Toronto, for triplexes, duplexes are exempt. Anything above a duplex, you need to follow something called an N-1 rule. Yes. So for every number of suites, for the number of suites, you will need -1 number of parking spots. 3 suites, 2 parking spots. 4 suites, 3 parking spots. However, because we don't have these, we don't have the legal number of parking spots, we have to go committee of adjustments to ask for basically a minor adjustment to allow us to bypass these zoning bylaws given by the city. And you have to provide with correct arguments and correct neighborhood research to say that you actually don't need parking spots because not everyone here drives.
And that's a really big point, right? Because, like, you know, you can't just, you know, I want to make sure it's emphasized because when we're looking at properties, you know, when you're out with myself or Ed, knowledge of the neighborhood and what you're able to get variance for. Obviously, we can't say with 100% certainty, but we know what the precedence is in the neighborhood and what it allows for. And you know, so when we're doing, like, let's say the Rush Home project, we know that, let's say, there's no laneways in that area. So most people are street parking. And so it's not common there for, you know, properties to have the required N-1 parking. It would be near impossible. And the demographic of people who are living there are not all drivers.
Ming, yeah. Oh, sorry. Sorry. I think there's a lag, so I didn't hear if you were finished. Sorry about that.
No worries. But like if we were doing that same project, let's say in East York, where there's tons of laneways and also tons of parking for properties there, we wouldn't get the same decision at COA because COA would say, hey, why can't you guys meet your parking requirements? There's so many places here that can meet parking requirements. So, you know, it's very important to have that kind of a very specific, you know, street by street knowledge when you're selecting the right property to do this triplex conversion.
Yeah. So for these properties, as I was saying, is we actually got challenged during COA. We got letters just like basically against us converting this into a legal triplex, and it was done by a couple of lawyers. But because we actually had strong arguments saying that first, there's a lot of transit, and then second, a major factor is the city wants people to get street parking permits. We look into the neighborhood, we know neighborhoods pretty well, but if you look into each neighborhood, figure out how much street parking is available. Street parking permits are available. You can give a very strong argument stating that because there's so many vacant street parking permits in this one small block radius, there's plenty of street parking for anyone to park here if they wanted to live here and own a car. So that was one of the major arguments, and we were able to overrule a few of the complaints that we did receive. Not complaints, but what do you call it? I guess.
Yeah, it helped us during our representation at COA. Remember, the committee of adjustments is actually, they're quite logical. Like my experience with COA is that, you know, they're looking at the laws, they're looking at logical arguments, and if you can provide logical arguments to the COA and you're not doing anything that is against the nature of the neighborhood, they will generally rule in your favor. But you need to make sure that your arguments make sense and that you're not kind of trying to be a trailblazer. Because when you're trying to do something unique that is not done before, that's when you're going to have more trouble at the COA.
Yeah, and the reason I saw a question here from Chun, Qun. So I'm assuming the question was around, you know, does it apply to all of Toronto or just certain pockets of downtown?
No.
Was that, yeah, so sorry, go ahead, Ed.
Okay. Did you want to answer or did you want me to?
I'm assuming, let me just take a stab. I'm assuming what he's asking is, you know, this whole like moving from, you know, a single family to 2 units to 3 units, you know, and having this kind of accessory, allowing us an accessory suite and then having to go to COA. 9 times out of 10, if you have to go to COA for a luxury triplex conversion, it's usually due to parking. And the reason that, you know, we're successful is usually because we do these in the right neighborhoods. And in the right neighborhoods, there's transit infrastructure. If you tried to do this in another area that's not serviced well by transit, then you're going to meet resistance at COA because now there's an argument to be made that you do need a parking space for those additional tenants. So that's, I'm not sure if that's what your question was or not, but hopefully it gives you some insight into why this works, why this model works, why this loophole works for us and in the neighborhoods that we recommend.
So another thing is that you have to be aware, like Ming and Matt keep emphasizing, you have to be very wary of which neighborhoods you're trying to do these things at. If you're doing in a RD zone, a residential detached zone, for example, Rosedale or
Plater
other
Estate.
really expensive, Player Estates in like other expensive areas in Toronto where they're just detached homes, single family homes, you're gonna have so much resistance that you will not be able to push it through committee of adjustments. While areas where it's very dense and a lot of renters to begin with, we have a very good argument to do so. Again, it comes to knowledge of the areas. On top of that, this is not for all of Toronto, not all of GTA, sorry. You're not allowed to have multi-families in other, like in Markham or York region, for example, or say Mississauga, or even like, I believe even like, I'm not sure about Hamilton, but for example, London, Ontario, these rules, I believe the city rules over there is that you're really only allowed to have a duplex. And if you wanted to have a triplex, you will have to go to committee regardless. So yeah, there's a lot, depending on what city and what region of Toronto or GTA or Ontario you are in, there are different building codes and zoning bylaws.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, Ed. You know, when we're doing these conversions, there's really two people that we need to make sure are happy. One is the Ontario government, because building code is defined at a provincial level. So, you know, we have to make sure that we are code conforming, building code conforming. The other thing that we need to make sure that we are satisfying is bylaw, and bylaw is city. So cities control their zoning. Cities control the kinds of buildings and where those buildings go, and the density of those buildings, and the distance between buildings, and setbacks, and window sizes. You know, that's a city thing. So we need to make sure that we're meeting both. And while code is consistent from city to city, bylaw is not consistent from city to city.
Right. Is there any other questions? I'm just driving right now, so.
Have we emphasized, sorry, I'm joining late, so I'm not sure if we went over this already. Have we emphasized the, you know, the complexity and how the devil's in the detail in the execution of one of these luxury triplexes? Like, for example, you know, we touched upon it really quickly when Ed was talking about, okay, well, you know, we need to submit for COA at the same time we submit for permits and everything. But there's a lot here. You know, we're just touching on the surface here, but if no one else has any questions, I'll just talk about it for a few minutes. So basically,
I'll add just one thing onto that, Matt, before you kind of dive into the process. You know, I think that you know, it is very complex, and you know, this is where we add our value. I've talked to many clients, and I'm pretty transparent. I say, you know, if you're looking for us to help you do a kitchen and bathroom cosmetic renovations, we're not worth your time. We're not cheap. Our expertise in is definitely navigating where things get a lot more complex. Things like these legal triplex conversions, or adding a legal basement suite. You know, when we're trying to do things completely above board, meet all the code requirements, meet fire separation, I think that's where we bring our value.
What kind of cap rates do you target?
Sorry, can you repeat your question?
Cap rates. Do you guys give yourself guidelines on what kind of cap rates you're targeting for these triplexes?
Yeah, I think. Jesus Christ. Yeah, I think we're building at like a 5.5 to a 6 cap, but it's getting reevaluated at like a 4.5 cap to a 4 cap. Probably a 4.5 cap by their appraisers. It's probably going to be reselling at a 4.3 to 4.5 cap.
Just to add on, just to be clear, we're in residential investments. So between 1 and 4 units is considered residential. 5 units and above is considered multifamily, like large multifamily. And that's where commercial financing and commercial appraisals come into effect. And that's where cap rates come into effect. So while it's very, very common for investors to go, okay, well, what's the cap rate? To be accurate, actually, it means very little. It means very, very little to nothing, actually. The reason is because cap rates are used in commercial, it's used in large multifamily, it's not used in 1 to 4 unit residential. What's the metrics we use in 1 to 4 unit residential? We'll be looking at metrics like cash on cash, equity paid on cash, appreciation on cash. We won't be looking at cap rate because cap rate is not really relevant. It's not what values the building. What values the building is actually, hey, the one down the street, also a triplex, also of a similar condition, similar level of renovation, similar number of bedrooms and bathrooms. That one sold for $2 million. Therefore, ours will probably sell for around $2 million. That's how an appraiser will look at it. In commercial appraisals, they'll be looking at your rent rolls, they'll be looking at your DCR, and yes, they'll be looking at your cap rate to evaluate the building. That's not how we evaluate buildings in call it single family residential, anywhere from 1 to 4 units, even though I say single family. So yeah, I mean, we're well aware that in Toronto, cap rates are anywhere from 3 3/4 to 4 1/4, depending on location, depending on if you're into like a AAA office building, or if you're into a residential building that's slightly outside the core. It'll affect your cap rate a little bit, but generally speaking, we don't use that metric because no one in the industry will use that metric for the type of projects that we're doing. Does that make any sense?
Thank you. Hey, Matthew, Daniel, thank you for explaining that. Thank goodness, because people keep asking what cap rate makes no sense to me whatsoever for a 1 to 4 unit. That metric makes no sense, but people ask that.
I mean, it's just because when you start out, you hear about cap rate, you hear that you can get like an 8 cap in Hamilton or a 13 cap in Windsor or something like that. And then, or, hey, I'm going to invest in Rochester, I'm going to get like a 15 cap. Like, yes, sure. Like it's a very easy but inaccurate way to evaluate real estate. But if you want to know what cap rates are, generally speaking in Toronto, yeah, they're around a 4 1/4. If you're going to use a kind of a baseline, that's generally where we would be with something like this, but we don't use that metric. Anyway, is that answering your question? I think George Emerson.
No, that's a good answer, and I get it. So a cash on cash is a good metric. What were the other 2 metrics you mentioned?
Cash on cash. So just as a recap, cash on cash means if I take monthly cash flows, if I annualize them, and then I divide by my capital outlay, that'll get my cash on cash metric. Again, one way to amplify your cash on cash return in an investment like this is to refinance afterward. So if we can refinance afterward, get a large portion of our renovation costs. So I think, Vinay in his comments said somewhere between $450 and $500 for the reno. If I can refinance, if I can pull out a lot of those rental costs, essentially, thought of it in another way, my rental was free. If my rental is free and I'm getting higher cash flows, damn, it's great. That boosts my cash on cash, right?
Yeah. Wait, I think.
Hello?
Yeah.
Hello?
I can hear you.
Are you speaking?
Oh, no.
Okay. Okay, so anyway, coming back now. The other 2 are equity pay down on cash. Basically, what's my mortgage principal reduction over the course of the year? And then which is obviously annualized, and then you divide that by your capital outlay. And hopefully your capital outlay is lower because I've done a equity takeout through a refinance. And the last one is appreciation on cash. So if I'm that's basically the market appreciation, the time value of appreciation, right? So my property is slated to grow 5% year over year. And let's say my property value is, I think he got it reappraised at 1.85. So let's go 5% of 1.85. Over the course of the year, my property would appreciate 925,000. No, what? 92,500. Anyway, then you annualize, that's the annualized value, and then you divide that by your capital outlay, and then you'll get another figure. When we do reno projects, there's one other profit center, actually. That one additional profit center is through forced appreciation. It's through the renovations, the initial equity lift. So that's where, we've taken that property from, purchase price of 1.18 or something like that or 1.16 or whatever it was to 1.85. So I've created a lift up and above my renos. So that's profit. That profit is realized in your first year after you refinance. It's a massive profit, but then that one becomes spread out over the lifetime of the investment. So it's a one-time lift in year one, and then it gets diluted as you go into year 2, 3, 4, and 5. But anyway, in a project like this, those are the 4 profit centers. Does that help, George?
That's great. Thanks very much.
Yeah, no problem. Where was I? What was I talking about? Ming, what was I talking about?
I don't remember. You say a lot of things.
I know.
I think you were going over the details or devil in the details for the execution of these projects.
Yes, thank you. So basically, we go find one of these things. We firm up the deal. What do? We engage, our entire team. That could be, it's usually an architect, a very specific type of architect who knows how to do these triplex conversions alongside us. If it requires something a little more sophisticated, we may bring in a private development planner who will understand very thoroughly what's going on in the neighborhood, what precedents have been set, and what will have a strong level of confidence of what we'll be able to achieve at COA. He'll do some very rigorous analysis, which will support the architect's argument at COA. We will be getting as-built drawings done as soon as possible. We'll be getting a survey done as soon as possible. That's usually a legal survey and a topological survey. A lot of stuff's happening even before close. We're engaging the entire team with the intent of trying to minimize our timeline as much as possible. So once we have as-built drawings, we have a survey, then our architect is doing up a complete set of drawings, a complete set of triplex drawings, if that's our intent. With that complete set of triplex drawings, we can't go to the city with those quite yet. If we do, we get slapped with a very heavy development charge, as Vinay was alluding to in the chat, and what Ed was alluding to during his tour of the property. That's somewhere in the range of roughly $60K per unit that you're adding. So if that's, you're trying to go from single family to triplex, boom, you'll get hit with 120 grand in a blink of an eye, right? The whole reason we go through this is to ensure that we don't get slapped with those charges. So what do? We take our triplex drawings and we scale them back to duplex drawings. That means 2 units, you combine 2 units into one, you're just on paper as a separate set of drawings, and then we submit to the city for those drawings. Because Toronto is the only municipality that allows this whole accessory suite or secondary suite without having to rezone or go to committee. So let me repeat that. Toronto is the only municipality that allows a secondary suite, or we like to say accessory suite, like a +1, without having to get it rezoned or go to committee of adjustments. What that allows us to do is submit a duplex set of drawings right off the bat to the city. So basically, close on the property, we have drawings in hand, we submit for permits. fingers crossed, everything goes well. You know, there's lots of stuff that has to happen. You have to go through the zoning examiner and a whole bunch of other stuff, and the building code. There's lots of stuff that'll happen. But in a few weeks, fingers crossed, we get our permits. We start construction. At the same time that we submitted for those permits, we take the triplex set of drawings and submit those to COA. Because 9 times out of 10, we'll have to go to COA because we're going to need a parking variance. As Ed was saying, you need N-1 parking spots. We're trying to go for 3 units, N equals 3. Therefore, we need 2 parking spots, technically, according to the zoning bylaws. Very few, not all of these places are going to adhere to that, right? If it does, great. It might mean that you're gonna have some other zoning bylaw or building code variants that you're gonna require. So you still might need to go to COA because you wanna increase the size of a dormer or something else, right? So it still might not free you up from that. You still might need to go to COA. But the trick here, in order to save time, you submit to COA with your triplex set of drawings, requesting those minor variances as soon as possible. You don't need to wait. You can do that as soon as you submit for your permits. The reason is because it takes 4, 6, sometimes longer months to get a COA date. So you're waiting and waiting and waiting. Instead of waiting, that being very unproductive time, we try and minimize that downtime by starting construction. And what do? We start construction with the duplex set of drawings. So we go in, we do demo, we do all the things that we need to do, all the structural improvements, remediation. If we need to underpin, that's what we're doing. You know, all that stuff. We can get pretty far, actually. We can get to like, I don't know, 95% completion. What we can't do is we can't put in that 3rd kitchen. We cannot make that 3rd unit with a separate entrance quite yet. So what it looks like on paper is a duplex where 2 units are combined into 1 unit. But at the same time, we're applying for 3 separate hydrometers, right? We've got the 2 hydrometers, 1 per unit, plus a common for common areas. That's how we get around it. So we get a 3rd hydrometer. We're sticking in all of our HVAC and everything, right? Then we reach a certain point, we finish our duplex set of drawings and our duplex construction. We close off our permits. That, in theory, should hopefully, as best as possible, line up with our COA date. Let's say our COA date was 6 months or whatever. We go to COA, hopefully all goes well. We get our COA approval for our minor variances. We now take those minor variants, the COA approval, and then once we close off our duplex construction, our duplex permits, we have our triplex set of drawings. We slap on that, our COA approval. We submit to the city for our triplex set of permits. We get those back. We put in our 3rd kitchen. We close off the separate entrances. Sorry, we close off the access between the 2 units. It already has a separate entrance, and boom. Now we have a triplex, and we close off that triplex permit. That's a very, very nuanced, it's a very, very nuanced process. It's wrought with so many pitfalls, and which is why it's a very, very difficult process. You make one mistake, and I think Daniel has a good anecdote. He knows someone on his street who went through this process, made a mistake, and how much did it cost them, Daniel?
I think it's like 120 grand.
120 grand. What happened exactly? If you
Well, I think their architect did not let them know when you go from like you said, going from a single family home to a triplex, that make that jump without doing a step process. They got slapped with a development levy for sure. But there's other charges as well. So, and that's on my street, and that was the model home I was basically looking at to do. In my case, I was lucky. That's another story, but yeah, that development levy, it's not trivial. And what these guys, it's not just shooting the horn and selling them, but the kind of details they're providing, I could verify every one from Ed to Ming and to Matthew, even Sam, like all four of them. The information is exact. It is exactly what's happening in Toronto. I'm actually in Toronto, so yeah, there hasn't been any piece of information that's been shared today that's like out of whack. So anyway, that's I want my $20.
Yeah, no problem. Your check's in the mail. No, that's thanks, Daniel. These are real life stories, right? Like, we learned from experience. There are, I don't know, I'm gonna guess it's a very small number, but I'm gonna guess there's probably only 50 people in Toronto who know how to do these triplex conversions. These legal triplex conversions using the stepping stone approach, this little sort of, call it a loophole or this nuanced stepping stone approach. People get it wrong and they get slapped with huge fees and huge levies.
Just on to we've used the word loophole a couple of times. I don't want to give people the impression that we're doing something that's underhanded in any way, because the city's well aware of this. It's not like we're doing something that the city doesn't know that this process exists. The same people at Committee of Adjustments representing the same areas every time, the same bunch of architects who are going to present to committee. The intention of development charges is for big developments, right? Like, if you're a condo and you're putting up 100 units, you are putting more strain on the city's resources. They need to upgrade their sewage, they need to upgrade electrical infrastructure, whatever it happens to be. And as a result, there's development charges. It was never really meant for, 2 units or 3 units. And so that's why they allow you to take a stepped approach. Those who don't know how to use the system properly, they get hit. But we're not, I just don't want to give the impression that we're doing something that is underhanded in any way, because it is, the city's fully aware of what we're doing. And we're even transparent with the inspectors. Like, when we have our first inspection, we're like, hey, our intention is to make a triplex. So please evaluate us under that bar of a legal triplex while we're in committee, right?
Actually, Ming, thank you for bringing that up. This is not a hack. This is actually totally doing everything legal. With an engineering background, we tend to over-engineer things. So we care about details. We want to do everything fully legal. This is fully legal zoning, fully legal, building
Yes.
code. So it's really good point you brought that up. All of this is following exactly what the rules are. And, yeah, so I agree with you. That's fantastic.
Yeah. We're just playing by the rules. We know the rules really well. That's all.
So there we go. We've shared our secret sauce with you.
And you know what? To be very frank, it is a bit of our secret sauce. But we know that even if you know how to, actually doing it, the actual execution is very difficult, right? That's why, like, people are always like, why don't you charge for this information? Why don't you just, why don't you make money off of this? And it's because, well, even if you know it, it's very difficult to do it, right? So, oh, it's really windy outside.
Are you just walking around your neighborhood now?
Yeah, I thought that'd be a good idea. Like, I got home and I was like, oh, I'll walk around my hood because it's a nice day, but holy, it's windy.
Yeah, so anyway, hopefully, like, it is our secret sauce. There is a lot of detail there. I've gone over it, even in as much detail that I've gone over it, that's still only like 10% of what it actually, like, of the actual devil in the detail type of details you're going to need to know in order to execute on this. This is just a high level overview, just to give you a sense of how complicated and complex and interdependent this entire process is. For sure, there are people like, there are lots of smart people out there, and you very well may be able to execute on this on your own. We also know lots of smart people who've tried, and so, we like to think that we have an expertise in this, and our expertise and our mandate is to help you do this. This is what Volition's been all about for since our inception. This is what we do day in, day out. So this is why we want to help you.
And what are your fees for doing that? How do you work it?
So yeah, there's you know, like, it's a fair question. Like, how do we make money, right? I think that's a fair question, because everybody has to make money in this, and it's only worthwhile for us to do if we're making money, right? So we make money like traditional brokerage on the sale of the property. So, you know, when we go buy an investment property, we make commission. We add this advisory, helping you buy the right property, you know, making sure that you're set up correctly on purchase. That's just a really nice bonus. And, you know, to be very blunt, you pay the same price for any agent. Why would you not go with somebody with knowledge, right? Like, it's the same. If you're on the buyer side, that commission's not even coming out of your pocket. You paid for by the seller. So, you know, go with somebody who has that knowledge. You're not paying any different price for it. On the construction portion, like, we run a construction company. So we do the construction on these, and we make money off that construction. But I'll be very, very, you know, transparent. It's not a big money maker for us, like the brokerage. The brokerage makes us more money than construction. We do it primarily because, you know, so many investment strategies require our ability to execute on construction. Like, it's actually why Volition formed, is because we needed each other's help to be able to execute on these more complicated investment strategies, which relied heavily on construction. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, part of it is we don't actually make much more than anyone else. We just add a hell of a lot more value than everyone else. Although phase two of this is that I mentioned this, I don't know, a week or 2 weeks ago. We're in the preliminary stages. For those who are interested in this but don't have the financial resources, or as Daniel messaged me later, the resourcefulness to do this on their own, or even, you know, they don't have the financial resources to do it by themselves. We are in the preliminary stages of investigating the formation of sort of like a Volition REIT, or a Volition private equity. So we don't know what that looks like quite yet, but if that is of interest to you, you know, doing one of these, but, you know, you don't have 850K or 900K or whatever it takes, and you don't have a mortgage qualification of X to make this happen, but maybe, you know, you have 150K and you're interested in still being part of this. We're investigating the possibility of putting like a fund together, and Volition actually being sort of a general partner, you guys being the limited partner, and then Volition going out and executing on one of these. So something for you guys to, we don't even talk about this because it's very, very much in the preliminary stages. But the only reason I mention it is because I want to get a sense to see what kind of appetite there is out there. If there's no appetite, we're not going to spend the time and effort setting up this structure. If there is an appetite, then at least we'll spend the time investigating to see how to make this happen. So if this is of interest to you, reach out to whoever you're working with on the Volition team, not me. Don't reach out to me. My response time is more than a week. So don't
if you'd like a reply, don't send Matt a message.
Reply. Don't message Ming, message Ed, message Sam. But just let us know if that's of interest to you, and we'll just, you know, we're just going to keep a quick pulse on how many people are interested to see whether it's worth us investigating to do one of these or not. Cool. Well, as more questions start to form, I'm going to throw up a poll right now for all the people who are left. I think it was about 15 or 20 people have already started to drop off, but basically let us know how you like this this Zoom meeting format, this virtual Street Smart tour. We want to get a sense of whether this is worth your time, worth our time. If you learned something, if you didn't learn anything, if you want to see different types of properties, like this was a triplex conversion. We did a triplex conversion because we think it's the most interesting. It's the most involved. It's what takes the highest level of sophistication to execute on.
Yeah, and something I'd add on to that, Matt, is you know, if you are interested in understanding it kind of in deeper detail, the numbers behind this, I know I mentioned it earlier, but you can go to our website and you can look at last month's meetup. We actually went through all the detail on, you know, these triplex conversions, how much these renovations cost, potential rents. It's all mapped out there. And then on February 1st, we had a huge, you know, 100+ seminar where we actually dove into, you know, all the theory behind this as well. So hopefully we'll be seeing some clips from that seminar.
One follow-up question. You mentioned your main profit center is in the brokerage services. But are you at all interested if a person already has acquired a property?
Sorry, I didn't catch the last part. Are we at all interested in?
Are you at all interested in, you've got the, you know, you've got some construction services and you've got, you know, property brokerage services. So are you at all interested if you can't do the property brokerage in doing construction?
No. I'll be honest. There's no, we already said there's no profit. There's very little profit for us in the construction. We're not in the business of just being people's contractors or just being people's property managers. We view ourselves as a full service, boutique, white glove service, end to end, basically delivering you a turnkey solution. If we have to come in and just be a part of that, you know, like we don't want to just be your property manager. We don't want to just be your leasing agent. We don't want to just be your project manager. We're interested in sort of being kind of the end-to-end service for you. So unfortunately, right now that falls outside the scope of our service for multiple reasons, not just profit, not just because of revenues for us, but it's also like, hey, you bought this property, we know nothing about it. And then now we have to go and go, okay, well, does this property fit our model? And then we have to go in and we have to do all the work we would have done anyway previously, but we just now have to do it for this project where we didn't actually close this deal with you. So there's a lot there and we're just not set up for it. At the end of the day, Volition is not a very big company still. So we have to be very selective on the projects that we undertake.
Yeah, construction kind of sucks. to be very, very blunt. It's a ton of work. It's wrought with challenges, and you know, like I said, we do it only to help us really execute on where we need to be. It's not, you know, not something that we, you know, intend to grow into a large portion of our business.
I launched a poll. Is anyone seeing it?
Yeah, I saw it, and then I dismissed it because I thought I'd bias the answer.
Not a single person has, here, I'm going to share my screen because not a single person, whoa, no, that's my banking.
Better close that, Matt.
Yeah, I know.
There's a lot of zeros there.
Yeah, a lot of leading zeros, not trailing zeros, unfortunately. This is the poll. Does anyone see it? 0 people have answered, have responded to this poll.
Looks like a bunch of people did respond, but maybe it's not coming through yet.
And Matthew, you're still sharing your Royal Bank screen.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, what's your password?
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Thanks.
And it actually came up twice, so I don't know if you maybe redid it. Like you might have resent it like a second time, and people didn't vote the second time.
Oh, a whole bunch of people say they voted.
Yeah.
Shoot. It
That's
shows
okay.
zeros for me. So
we'll figure it out on the back end. Is there anything else? My phone's about to die, so I've got about 5% battery left.
On a scale of 0 to 10, everyone puts in the chat the number that they were in the poll, and I will manually tabulate them. or I'll get Flo to manually tabulate.
All right, guys. I'm gonna head out.
No, but Matt, some people did have comments in the chat saying that it's helpful because there's no drive involved, and so I think this Zoom format's pretty well received, other than the poll function.
So the only reason you like this is because there's no driving involved.
Well, for the cheapskates, there's no fee involved either.
Oh, right. I forgot to. Okay, next one is paid via PayPal. Thanks for reminding me, Flo. You can all flame Flo now for reminding us that if it's free, people don't appreciate it. So thanks for reminding us, Flo. I'll make sure we charge for the next one. How did you like okay, so forget the format now. How did you like the content? Triplex conversion, the whole COA process, stepping stone approach, duplex, single family, duplex to triplex, all that stuff. Valuable? All right.
Perfect. Seems like everyone likes the content, Matt.
Good stuff.
If you guys are interested if you guys are interested in learning more, feel free to contact Ming, myself, or Sam. Like Matt said, not Matt. He won't answer you. He doesn't even answer us.
Okay, guys, I'm gonna wrap it up then because my phone's almost dead.
Same.
And we still got lots of businesses. Quick inside, business is actually still very busy. A lot of investors are trying to capitalize on a slower COVID market right now, so it's busy. So anyway, thanks very much, guys. We'll see you at the next meetup. Next meetup I think is in 2 weeks. We're having a guest speaker. His name's Dave DeBeau. He specializes in raising capital, and he's put together a special presentation as to how to raise capital during a pandemic. So if you're interested in having JVs, if you're interested in using other people's money to invest, especially in this kind of market, it could be very useful for you to attend. So look out for the email blast for that.
Good stuff. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Take care. Take care.
Bye.
Bye all.